Greetings, true believers. It's your old pal Spider-Man. Hey guys, it's KJ here. I go by Spider on the Shaving Cadre forum. This is going to be my 7 Sins of Wetshaving video. Now I got to give props to Nurse Dave, who kind of spurred this idea. We had a thread called the Three Owners Chat. They were calling for ideas for the things that Dave, Chris, and Chad can talk about on their next video. And Nurse Dave said, hey, I'd like to see your guys' answers to the 7 Sins of Wetshaving topic. And I thought, that would be a great topic for a thread on its own and have all the members do theirs. So started it a while ago. A lot of you have posted videos of your own, and I'm finally getting around to doing mine. One of the reasons why I waited so long is I had to take a trip for work. But second is one of the things that I wanted to talk about was a fresh purchase and still on order. So I just received it the other day, so now I can finally talk about that. So without further ado, let's get started on my list of the 7 Sins of Wetshaving. Now, number 1 is greed. So I'm going to be talking about my most expensive and most inexpensive purchases. So that's where number 1 comes in. The item that I was waiting on is my new Paladin brush. This is the Harlequin material, and the lighting isn't really doing this brush justice, but it's a very cool handle material. Now this material is a bit of a premium material, so this one does cost more than a normal standard Paladin brush, so that's why this is one of my most expensive purchases, but not the most expensive purchase. That one's coming up. I just love the look of this, and I will talk more specifically about why I purchased this individual brush on a future video. So for right now, we'll just leave it at that. Now, the number 1 most expensive purchase that I have made for shaving is this guy, my Darwin Deluxe. Now, I've been traditional wet shaving for just over 8 years now, and from day one, the first time I laid my eyes on this razor, I knew that was the razor, that was my holy grail. And at the time, it was fetching prices of $200 to $300, and I thought, that is insane. Like, why would you spend $200 to $300 on a razor? I bought this about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and they were $200 to $300. Then they got really scarce, and you never saw them. And all of a sudden, a few of them started popping back up, and the price kind of went through the roof on them. So if you know what the current market is on these, that's about what I paid for it. I just had to get it. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I had to have this because I had lusted after this razor for so long. See what I did there? And so when it came up and I found it on eBay, I had to have it. And it didn't matter what everybody else bid. I actually had to add this to my collection, and so glad that I did. It's just, I just love the way this looks, the way it feels. Just the coolest razor ever. So that is my most expensive. Now for my least expensive, I'm going to do a little bit different take than what everybody has done so far. I mean, yeah, there's your Arco, there's your Williams, but I'm going to talk about vintage items, because one of my favorite things to do is to go antique store shopping and see what I can get for cheap at antique stores, because I'm cheap at heart. I mean, yeah, I've splurged a little bit on a couple of razors and brushes like you've seen, but really, anything that I get, I like to get for as little money as possible, and pride myself in, see what I did there? Pride myself in finding things super cheap, getting good finds in the wilds. So one of those is vintage Williams mug soap. Um, I've been able to find these for a couple of dollars. I've even found a bunch on eBay. Sometimes you can find them in a big lot, and they average about $2 a puck. So that's a super good deal. So I have a lot of vintage Williams in my collection, but I haven't paid any more than like $5 per puck of my vintage Williams. But a few of them I have gotten for around $1 to $2. And the other thing is Old Spice. So I got this vintage Old Spice refill, which is still sealed in the plastic. Still has smell, and this cost me $2 at an antique store. Also, along with that is the Old Spice aftershave. You can see this bottle is nearly full. This cost me $1. I cannot tell you how many bottles of full vintage Old Spice I have found for between $1 and $3 each. It's just all over the place. You just have to take a little bit of time and go explore some of these antique stores, Goodwill, Salvation Army, thrift stores, what have you. And the stuff is out there. It just takes a little bit of digging to find it. And the last thing is vintage razors. This is an old Gillette Franken razor. I have no idea what this handle is, but it's an old type. And then a Gem Micromatic. Now these things are filthy, dirty, nasty because I just bought them, but these razors cost me like $2 a piece. So with a little bit of elbow grease, they'll clean up nicely and become great shavers, and that will also be a topic for a future video of mine where I'll talk about how I clean these up. So that's just a little bit of something for you guys. Just get out there, go to antique stores, dig around, see what you can find, because the deals are out there, and I have so much fun doing that. So that brings us to number 2, which is wrath, the things you love to hate. Now, you've seen this one before. It's my Darwin. You know I love it. But the thing is so aggressive. I don't like shaving with this. There's no way I'll ever part with this. But I just do not like shaving with it. I'm not a fan of aggressive razors. Don't like aggressive shaves. If you see my videos, you know I like to shave relatively fast, and an aggressive razor does not work out for me. So I love it, but I hate it. I break it out every now and then to shave with it, and as soon as I'm done with it, I put it back on my display case because I just do not like the shave. Now, along with that is also my Cobra. Same reason. I love this razor. It was a gift, and it's just really aggressive, and I can get by a little bit better with this one than with the Darwin, but still, it's just really aggressive. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it because I do love the razor. I love the way it looks. I'm a big fan of snakes, so the Cobra is awesome to me, but I just find it really aggressive and just not an enjoyable shave. And lastly, software-wise, tobacco. I love the smell. That's what I love about this, the smell. The lather, the shave, it doesn't do it for me. It's not very protective. It makes shaving with a mild razor feel like it's an aggressive razor. It's just not protective, and I will get nicks and cuts when I use this soap with a razor and a blade that have never nicked or cut me before. And I can't figure out why, but it's just not an enjoyable shave. Smells perfectly enjoyable. I love the smell of it. I love making lather with it. I just don't like shaving with it. Okay, number 3, gluttony. Your most delicious scents. Now, I don't really have any scents that are like fruity or anything that's kind of food-ish. So I don't have any scents really that would make me just want to eat the soap. You know, I don't have anything that I smell and just say, oh, I wish I could just eat that if it wasn't gonna taste awful and be toxic to my body. But I do have 3 soaps that I just love the scent of. So, just taking a whiff of them just takes me to a different place, and I could just sit there with the puck on my nose and smell it for hours. And number 1 is Prix de Provence number 63. Just love it. I posted in another thread about looking for scents similar to some other thing, and this one was recommended to me. And this is probably the best recommendation that I've ever had. It's just a very warm, woodsy, kind of vanilla, ambery kind of smell. So if you like those smells, this is just the best. I love it. They don't have an aftershave splash, which I'm really irritated with. They do have a balm, but I don't really care for balms. But I have heard, or actually I got confirmation from them. I emailed them, and they said they are coming out with a eau de toilette cologne. So I'm looking forward to getting that, trying it as soon as it comes out, and possibly making an aftershave splash out of that. My number 2 scent is Mystic Water Lily of the Valley. Again, not really. I'm not really a big floral kind of guy. It's not, but I don't know. There's just something about the Lily of the Valley that, from my very first scent, I think when I first got into Mystic Water soaps, she sent me some samples, and this was one of them, and it just became an instant favorite. Just love it. Now my last one is my favorite scent of all time. And that is St. Charles Shave Fairway. I'm actually kind of a little bit proud of this one. Did it again. Because I actually had something to do with bringing this scent back. Now if you smell it, it smells kind of greenish. It's like a fresh cut lawn with a little bit of something else in there. It just has that fresh, sharp green smell to it, and I just love it. Now, I had received a pass box a long time ago, and there was a puck of this in there, and I cut a little chunk of it off, and I just kept a little sample for it because I loved the scent so much. And after Sue had passed, Sue Moore, who created St. Charles Shave, I approached Wendy, her daughter, and said, "Hey, I really need some Fairway soap." I said, "Do you know, can you make it again?" And she said that she couldn't because she lost the recipe. A lot of the stuff that Sue did was in her head, and it wasn't organized, and she did it perfectly, but when it came time to somebody else taking over, she just couldn't. She didn't know what the recipe was. She didn't see anything that said Fairway on it anywhere. And so I did a little bit of investigative work on one of the forums and found a reference that Sue had posted about a soap called Shamrock. And somebody, whether it was from Sue directly or from somebody else, but they said that Shamrock had become Fairway. So I told this to Wendy, and Wendy said, "Oh, well, I do have a recipe for Shamrock." So she mixed some up. She sent me a sample of aftershave, and I said, "That's it. That's the recipe right there." So because of that whole interaction, she was able to recreate the Fairway soap, and now it's available on her website to purchase if you want to try it. So that's just a really cool story that I'm really proud of. And just love the scent. Love the scent. I have the aftershave, the balm, the soap. I have everything in this scent because I just love it. All right, so the next up is number 4, Sloth. Thanks, John, for the mug. Now, Sloth is your most neglected item due to laziness. And really, I've got 2. Number 1 is brushes. I've got a collection of vintage brushes that I've picked up along the way, mostly from antique stores. a couple from eBay, things that I had intended on restoring, putting new knots in, whatever. Things like my rubber set 400. Things like these awesome Ever Ready brushes. I've got a lot of Bakelite, or not Bakelite, what is this called? Mind blank. Anyways, I've got lots of brushes in here that I want to re-knot. I want to get them back into service. Butterscotch. I knew it would come to me. So I've got quite a few butterscotch handles. Things that I just like to get back into service. And I don't get around to it. Eventually I'll find time, but it's not right now. And along the same hand is my straight razors. I've got lots of them. This isn't even half of what I've got. Again, lots of stuff that I've picked up at antique stores. Some that I've purchased. I just haven't gotten around to be able to restore them. I don't have yet a full set of stones of my own for honing them. So a lot of them just sit. I've got a few razors that I had sent out to other people to hone. So I've started straight razor shaving, but even that takes a back burner just because of the maintenance involved, and I'm lazy, so I don't want to put up with the maintenance. Now I do have a set of stones. I got a couple of basic stones that I bought. I don't have any finishers of my own, but I did get a couple of stones on loan from Chris Lindsay. So I'm hoping to find some time to get back into and learning the honing myself. And I think once I get to that point, learn how to use them, then it'll be more enjoyable, and I'll get back in and hopefully can restore most of the razors that I do have. So those are my two most neglected things, is the brushes and the straight razors. Okay, pride. And number 5, the items that I'm most proud of. This is my worst one because I'm so proud of so much stuff. I have a huge collection, and eventually I'll do a video just showing you guys my den and my collection of lots of different things. But I'm so proud of a lot of the stuff that I've been able to find. I love it when I have a piece that nobody else has. So I'll share a couple of those with you. Some of my more rare stuff and something that is my prized possession. So number 1 is my Gillette Psycho. This one, just because it was a gift to me by my girlfriend. She kind of did a little bit of digging to find out what I would like, and got me this. It's not an original key, but that's cool. So I love the macabre. I love horror movies. So the fact that there's a razor called the Gillette Psycho that was used in hospitals and psych wards and things like that. This thing is just really cool piece of history. So that's one of my most prized possessions because it came from her, and it means a lot to me. The second one, and this is one that I bought myself. I'm really, probably of all the different things that I collect, the thing that kind of makes the most, it means the most to me is my Williams stuff. And I don't know why, I just got on a kick of collecting Williams items. And so the first one is a milk glass Williams mug. Now I have 2 of these mugs. One of them is just a mug that I purchased from somebody in Canada, because these were originally produced in Canada. In fact, I think they were only produced in Canada. But this one is crazy because I found it at a estate sale in Missouri, in the box, and I think I paid $10 for this. So just the fact that I found this, something made in Canada, I found it locally within a half an hour of my house at an estate sale, and I was already collecting this stuff. It was just insane to me. So this is one of my most prized possessions. But probably my best Williams item, and I only know of about 3 or 4 of these, is my Williams DE razor. I love the old school W Williams logo. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I gave it away a little bit. The Williams right here on both sides, it says Williams on there. Now this is a split handle razor. So you press these two, the handle comes apart, and you load the blade in like this. You can see the safety combs actually pivot around, and they will lock in the blade like that. So it's just a super, super unique razor, and I just love everything about this. So this is one of my prized pieces in my collections. Now, the most prideful thing I have is an heirloom piece. Well, actually 3 heirloom pieces that I have. I started to get into collecting based off of aftershaves. Both my grandmothers, well, one of them sold Avon, the other one just had a bunch of Avon in her bathroom, and I remember as a child seeing those Avon bottles, and that's what made me start collecting Avon bottles myself when I got into shaving. Now, after my grandfather passed, I'd asked my grandmother if she had any shaving items, anything of his, which she said that she didn't. But later on, she did find some stuff, and it's just amazing. So my grandfather worked for Amway, but not only worked for Amway, he was the first full-time employee of Amway. He worked for the company when they just worked out of a garage. My grandfather knew the recipes to make the formulas for some of their first products, and then later on he did research and development, worked with the suppliers to make bottles and containers and things like that. So she gave me 3 bottles of aftershave that he had. Now, this one is an old powder flask design. I don't know much about this. I don't know if this was an original bottle or what, but this was part of his collection. There's a gramophone decanter. Now this one has a note written on it that says original bottle, modified for release. She told me this was the prototype bottle. So this is what the actual release looked like, brown bottle with the gramophone top, but she said this was the first one ever made, the original prototype. Now I had already had one of these in my collection because I collect the Amway decanters, but the fact that this thing belonged to my grandfather and he had a hand in making this, not with his own hands, but went out to the source, helped everybody along the way to get this in production. That's just amazing. And then pre-production. So I imagine this to be also another prototype because this has a clear bottle. And they didn't have clear bottles when they went into production. So I think this was another sample, maybe in the process of them determining what color they were going to make it. They made some in clear and some in brown. I don't know, but this is probably the only one in existence like this. So I'm very, very proud that my grandfather was involved in making these and that they ended up in my collection. So that's pride. Lust. The things that I want that I really can't have. I had to think about this for a long time because a lot of you guys have noted that if you really, really want something, you're going to go out and get it. So there's not a whole lot that's really out of my reach, except for, I came up with 2 things. Now the first one is a palette and brush. Ebonite handles are really hard to make. so they are really expensive. But they really have a character all to their own. I've held one before. When you pick up a fresh resin handle, it's cold. When you pick up an ebonite handle, it's warm. Like, it's warm to the touch. Like, it responds to your body heat, and they're just different. And I really love the deep sea ebonite material that Ken at Paladin sometimes works with. It's really hard to describe, but it's very colorful, but it's lots of different colors, and they're all just kind of swirled randomly together. If you're familiar with Fordite, which is something that they dug up out of the old Ford plants after layers and layers and layers of different colors have been spray painted, and it almost became hard like a rock. And some people will take pieces of Fordite and make jewelry out of it. Well, it reminds me of Fordite. So it's not, most of his ebonite brushes are black with a single color or a couple of colors swirled in lightly. This is predominantly like a sea green color with lots of small bits of reds and yellows and blues and greens all mixed in. So that's what I really, really like. I would take any brush or any brush style in that material and would make my day. But my favorite handle style is the Buck Rogers. So if there was one in a Buck Rogers, that would be the ultimate brush for me. Two, and this is going to come up again, my Darwin Deluxe. As I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of, horror movies, the macabre, anything like that. The original case for this is called a coffin case, and it looks like a leather coffin. And I would really, really, really love to have a case for my Darwin Deluxe. That would just complete the collection. But you can't find the cases anywhere. No one ever has one for sale by itself. And this was way expensive. And if there's one that is ever being sold with the case, I would never be able to afford it. And it's just crazy. But that would be the thing that I would lust after, is the case to go with my most lusted after razor. Okay. Last up is envy. So who in the wet shaving community do you most envy? I really had to think about this because there's no one person in particular. But there's a small group of people that I do envy. And that is Ken from Paladin Shaving, Scott from Captain's Choice, and our very own Dave from the Shaving Cadre, among other people, but those are just examples. Now, the reason that I envy them is because they have taken something that is a hobby to them, and they've turned their passion for the hobby into a career. They're able to make a living doing something that involves something that they started off doing just as a hobbyist. So Ken, started off as a steward in the brush forum at another forum, and had an idea for creating this brush in conjunction with somebody else, and turned that passion for creating that brush into, he's now making his own brushes. Scott at Captain's Choice, he wanted to find a bay rum that he enjoyed. He couldn't find one. So he did some research, asked for tips on how to make an aftershave, ended up creating arguably one of the best bay rum aftershaves out there, and is now in full business, making aftershaves, making soaps. I think he's got brushes and razors and bowls and all sorts of stuff now that all stemmed from him having a passion for creating that one aftershave just because he wanted it for himself. But now that's his career, and now he makes a living off of selling the things that he's passionate about. Dave's just a crazy guy who shaves with crazy straight razors, but now he's able to work at a barber shop teaching people how to shave with a straight razor, how to hone these straight razors. And that's just awesome to me, that you can take something that you're passionate about and make a living off of it. not that I don't enjoy my job, not that I would give up my job for anything. I'm sure a lot of people would love to have the job that I have. Um, it's just not my hobby. And when you have a career that marries with your hobby, I think that makes everything so much more enjoyable. And so that's the type of people that I really envy. Um, so yeah, so this video has gone on quite long enough. So we'll wrap it up, and we'll talk about some more stuff in the future. Thanks a lot, guys.